What really happens when we die? Science can track the heartbeat, measure brainwaves, and map every cellular process, yet it cannot touch the deepest mystery, consciousness. People report leaving their bodies, seeing tunnels of light, feeling unconditional peace, and encountering things no microscope can reveal. The atoms in our bodies return to the universe, stardust recycled into new life. But what about awareness itself? Is there more than biology, more than matter? Death is the ultimate frontier, where measurable facts meet the unknowable, where science is stumped, and where the greatest questions of existence demand we confront life, meaning, and the universe itself. When we talk about death from a biological perspective, what we are really examining is the precise moment when the machinery of life, our bodies, ceases to function. The human body is a highly complex system, composed of trillions of cells, each performing specific tasks to maintain the delicate balance we call life. At the moment of death, this balance collapses. The heart stops pumping blood, and without circulation, oxygen no longer reaches the brain and vital organs. Neurons, starved of oxygen, begin to fail almost immediately, shutting down electrical activity that underpins thought, sensation, and awareness. The brain, a central hub coordinating every function, becomes silent, and the signals that once orchestrated the body's movements, responses, and perceptions come to an abrupt halt. Following this, the body undergoes a series of predictable physical changes. Rigor mortis sets in as chemical changes in the muscles cause them to stiffen, a temporary but unmistakable signature of death. Internally, cellular breakdown begins as the carefully regulated processes that maintained homeostasis can no longer continue, allowing enzymes to digest tissues in a process known as autolysis. Simultaneously, the body's microbial inhabitants, which lived in balance with us, become dominant, accelerating decomposition. From a scientific standpoint, these events are measurable and observable. Death has clear markers that distinguish life from the absence of it. Yet even with all these details, biology only captures part of the story. It accounts for the visible and quantifiable, the stopping of the heart, the cessation of brainwaves, the decay of tissues, but it says nothing about what was once animating the system, the sense of awareness that was present while life persisted. The process is both precise and inevitable, a natural endpoint to the biochemical processes that sustain life. Every moment of our existence relies on a chain of microscopic interactions, and death represents the final unraveling of that chain. Despite the clarity of these physiological events, the full significance of what dies, the experience of being, the sense of self, the consciousness that perceives the world, remains elusive. Science can explain the mechanics, trace the chemical changes, and even predict the sequence of events that follow the last heartbeat, but it stops short of answering the deeper question of what it means for a living being to cease, leaving a space where observation meets mystery and where the known confronts the unknowable. Consciousness is one of the most profound mysteries in science, and it becomes even more enigmatic when considered in the context of death. Despite decades of research in neuroscience and cognitive science, there is still no universally accepted explanation for what consciousness truly is, or how it arises from the activity of neurons in the brain. We understand that the brain produces electrical and chemical signals that correspond to perception, thought, and self-awareness. Yet the subjective experience, what it feels like to be alive, remains largely unexplained. When a person dies, the brain ceases to function, and yet reports from near-death experiences suggest that consciousness may not end entirely at that moment. People who have been clinically dead or close to death often describe vivid experiences, sensations of floating outside the body, traveling through a tunnel of light, or encountering beings or landscapes that feel more real than the waking world. From a purely biological standpoint, these experiences are difficult to explain. Some scientists propose that they are the result of the brain's last bursts of activity, oxygen deprivation, or the release of neurochemicals under extreme stress. Yet these explanations do not fully account for the consistency, clarity, and sometimes transformative nature of the experiences. Consciousness itself challenges the idea that life can be reduced purely to measurable processes. It suggests that there is something about being alive that may not be entirely captured by electrical signals or chemical reactions. When the body dies, the mechanisms we can measure, heartbeat, brainwaves, breathing, cease. But the question of whether the conscious self disappears in the same instant remains unresolved. Philosophers, scientists, and spiritual thinkers alike have pondered whether consciousness is an emergent property of matter, a byproduct of complex neural networks, or something more fundamental to the fabric of reality. This uncertainty underscores the limits of scientific knowledge and invites a sense of humility. While biology can track the cessation of function in cells and organs, and while physics can describe the conservation of matter and energy, the subjective experience of awareness defies quantification. It is in this gap between what can be observed and what is experienced that the deepest questions about death and consciousness emerge, where science meets philosophy and where the simple facts of life's end confront the enduring mystery of what it means to be aware, to exist, and to cease to exist in ways that our instruments and measurements have yet to fully capture. Near-death experiences are among the most compelling and puzzling phenomena that challenge our understanding of life and death. Individuals who have been close to death, sometimes clinically dead for minutes, often report vivid experiences that cannot be fully explained by conventional science. Common elements of these experiences include the sensation of leaving one's body, observing events from a detached perspective, moving through a tunnel of light, encountering deceased relatives or spiritual beings, and experiencing an intense feeling of peace or unconditional love. While some attempt to reduce these accounts to neurological phenomena, such as oxygen deprivation in the brain, the release of endorphins, or the brain's response to extreme stress, these explanations fall short of capturing the consistency, emotional depth, and transformative nature of the experiences. Researchers have noted remarkable similarities in reports across cultures, ages, and religious backgrounds, suggesting that near-death experiences are not simply hallucinations produced by expectation or belief. Many who survive these experiences describe a profound shift in their perception of life and death, reporting reduced fear of dying, heightened empathy, or a sense of purpose they had not felt before. Science can observe the physical conditions surrounding these experiences. The heart may stop, brain activity may decline, or blood flow may be severely reduced. But the subjective experience remains resistant to objective measurement. Functional magnetic resonance imaging and other brain monitoring tools can detect patterns of activity under extreme conditions, yet they cannot recreate the actual experience reported by those who were near death. The challenge is that near-death experiences lie at the intersection of measurable biology and subjective consciousness, a domain where science has limited tools to fully probe. They highlight the limits of a purely materialistic view of death and force us to question whether consciousness is strictly tied to a functioning brain or whether it might in some way extend beyond it. While skeptics insist that near-death experiences are neurological artifacts, the accounts themselves continue to inspire curiosity, debate, and even scientific investigation. They raise profound questions. Is there more to existence than the physical body? Can consciousness persist in ways we do not yet understand? Near-death experiences confront us with a paradox, where the body fails yet awareness may still seem present, where science explains the mechanics but not the meaning, and where human testimony points to realities that remain elusive to measurement. These phenomena serve as reminders that, despite all our advances, death is not just a biological endpoint but a threshold into mysteries that science continues to explore, leaving space for wonder, reflection, and the realization that the limits of our understanding may be far closer to the beginning than the end. When we step back and look at death from a cosmic perspective, it takes on a dimension that is both humbling and awe-inspiring. The elements that make up our bodies, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, calcium, and countless others, did not originate within us, but were forged in the hearts of stars that lived and died long before the Earth existed. When a human dies, those same elements do not vanish, they return to the environment, breaking down into the soil, the air, and eventually becoming part of new life. In this sense, death is not an end, but a transformation, a process in which the matter that once composed a living, conscious being is recycled into the universe. The oxygen in our lungs may return to the atmosphere, the carbon in our cells may be absorbed by plants, and calcium from our bones may enrich the soil, contributing to the growth of new organisms. Viewed through this lens, death is part of a larger universal cycle, a continuation of the processes that govern all matter. Life and death are intimately connected, not opposites but sequential stages in an ongoing cosmic rhythm. There is also a poetic resonance in recognizing that the atoms that make up our bodies were once inside stars, that the very elements that allow neurons to fire and hearts to beat are stardust, bound by the laws of physics and chemistry. This perspective can evoke a sense of immortality, not of consciousness or identity persisting in some supernatural form, but of our fundamental components continuing to exist, transforming, and participating in the ongoing evolution of the universe. The cycle of matter underscores the interconnectedness of all things. Every living being, from the tiniest microbe to the largest mammal, shares this origin and eventual return to the cosmos. In understanding death as a natural scientific process, we also confront the limits of human perception. We are used to thinking in terms of beginnings and endings, of life and death as discrete states, but from the perspective of matter and energy, these distinctions are fluid. The universe does not create or destroy, it transforms, redistributes, and recombines. And in that continuous process, each death contributes to the life of everything that follows. This cosmic framing of death can shift our perception from fear to awe, from anxiety to wonder, revealing a universe that is far larger and more intricate than our individual existence, yet intimately connected to it, where each ending becomes a seed for new beginnings, and where the components of what we were continue to participate in the grand unending dance of the cosmos. The limits of scientific knowledge become particularly evident when we confront death, a phenomenon that is at once universal and deeply mysterious. Science excels at describing measurable processes, from the firing of neurons to the circulation of blood, from the breakdown of cells to the decay of tissues, but it struggles when faced with questions that cannot be quantified or directly observed. Consciousness, awareness, and subjective experience are phenomena that elude purely empirical study, and death exposes the boundary between what science can explain and what remains uncertain. Despite the most sophisticated tools and technologies, science cannot yet fully account for what it feels like to cease existing or whether awareness persists in any form after biological functions end. This is not a failure of science, but a reflection of its scope. It is designed to explore the observable, testable, and repeatable aspects of reality, not the ineffable qualities of subjective experience. The phenomenon of death sits at the intersection of the measurable and the unknowable. While we can chart the moments when the heart stops beating, the brain waves fade, or the body cools, these observations provide no insight into the essence of the self or the experience of transitioning from life to whatever follows. Even phenomena like near-death experiences, which are reported consistently across cultures and circumstances, challenge scientific explanations, leaving room for questions that remain unanswered. The limits of knowledge here are humbling, reminding us that not all mysteries can be solved through observation and experimentation alone. This boundary invites a form of intellectual humility, a recognition that human understanding, no matter how advanced, is finite. It also opens space for wonder and contemplation, encouraging us to consider possibilities beyond the purely material and to reflect on what existence, life, and death might truly mean. Science, in revealing both the mechanics of life and the mysteries it cannot penetrate, guides us toward a deeper appreciation for the complexity of reality. It demonstrates that knowledge is not absolute but conditional, dependent on the tools, methods, and perspectives available. The inability of science to fully explain death does not diminish its value. Rather, it highlights the vastness of the unknown and the richness of the questions that remain. In confronting these limits, we are invited to embrace curiosity, to acknowledge that some aspects of reality may forever resist complete understanding, and to appreciate that the pursuit of knowledge is as much about exploring the boundaries of comprehension as it is about discovering definitive answers. Death inevitably forces us to confront some of the deepest philosophical and existential questions humanity has ever asked. Beyond the biological processes and scientific observations, it challenges us to consider what it means to exist, what gives life meaning, and how we define the self. The certainty of mortality highlights the transient nature of experience, compelling reflection on purpose, values, and the legacy we leave behind. Philosophy has long explored whether life derives meaning intrinsically, through the act of living and experiencing, or extrinsically, through relationships, accomplishments, and the impact we have on the world. Death creates a mirror against which we measure our choices, revealing the fragility of existence and the importance of intention. It also provokes questions about consciousness and identity. If the body ceases to function, does the self vanish entirely, or is there a dimension of awareness that persists beyond measurable life? Different philosophical traditions approach these questions in varied ways, from existentialists who argue that meaning is constructed in the face of death to spiritual perspectives that posit continuity beyond the physical. These reflections are not purely abstract. They shape how individuals live, influencing priorities, ethics, and emotional responses to both life and mortality. Existential awareness can inspire urgency, gratitude, or a reevaluation of what truly matters, prompting humans to cultivate deeper connections, seek knowledge, or embrace creativity. At the same time, death exposes the limitations of human understanding, reminding us that some questions may remain unanswered, and that certainty is often elusive. This interplay between the known and the unknown, the finite and the potentially infinite, fosters a sense of humility, encouraging a recognition of our smallness in the broader scheme of existence. Yet within this uncertainty lies a profound opportunity, the ability to reflect on life from a perspective unclouded by permanence, to confront fear, and to embrace curiosity about what lies beyond. The human mind is uniquely equipped to ponder these mysteries, to imagine, question, and seek meaning in the face of finality. In doing so, death serves not just as an endpoint, but as a lens through which life can be examined, appreciated, and lived more fully. It reminds us that existence is fleeting, that knowledge is limited, and that the pursuit of understanding, whether scientific, philosophical, or spiritual, is a defining feature of humanity. Through this lens, death becomes more than a cessation of function. It is a profound teacher, prompting reflection, inspiring wonder, and challenging the very way we conceive of life, consciousness, and the mysteries that may extend beyond our perception. In exploring what happens after death, we traverse the boundaries between science, consciousness, and the cosmos. Biology shows us the precise, measurable processes that occur when life ends, yet even with all our knowledge, the experience of consciousness, the mysteries revealed in near-death phenomena, and the cosmic cycles of matter remind us that much remains beyond our grasp. Science can explain the mechanics, philosophy can probe meaning, and the universe offers a perspective that is both humbling and awe-inspiring. Death is not simply an ending but a transformation, a reminder of the limits of knowledge and the vastness of mystery. It challenges us to reflect on the nature of existence, the value of life, and the profound questions that may remain unanswered, leaving room for curiosity, wonder, and contemplation. In facing the unknown, we are invited to live more intentionally, to appreciate the interconnectedness of all things, and to embrace both the measurable and the mysterious aspects of reality. As you reflect on these ideas, may you approach life with curiosity, courage, and a deeper appreciation for the fleeting yet remarkable experience of being alive. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey of thought and exploration with you. Good luck in your pursuit of understanding, and may your curiosity never cease to expand the horizons of what you know and what you wonder.